Greetings, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our first 2017 Chartres Community Call. And we're very much looking forward to this coming summer when we gather in Chartres in early July. And today, our guest speaker is going to be Carolyn Myss, and also Jane will be adding some comments at the end of the call, and he will be our featured speaker next month on our February call. So we're going to begin with an invocation from Apila.
Good morning. Well, good morning from Hawaii. I'm lighting my sage, offering it to the directions. Great Spirit, Christ, Muhammad, Allah, by many names, Tanger, Sungwai Dizong, we know you. Within the name, there are words, sounds, vibrations, frequencies. These unfoldings, these iterative examples of you, your creative life force, we see in language we call arithmetica. This understanding helps us draw closer to you within us, and gives us, when we perceive and stay true to that intimacy, a way forward. In this time of great change, of devastation, we look to these ancient voices, to the echo of your voice, in the numbers and the pacing and the rhythm, in the tone. For these gifts, for this possibility, for this invitation, we say yes. Ah, Mama. Ooh, no.
Thank you, Apila.
You're welcome, dear.
I have to say, something quite extraordinary just happened on my computer. I have a large Vesica Pisces image open, and your face was right in the center of it during your prayer. The way that the Christ is in the center of the Vesica Pisces on the front west portal of the cathedral. And it was just amazing to hold that and hear your words. So,
thank you. The way it shows itself is always so beautiful.
Yeah. So, again, I'd just like to welcome everyone. It's such a precious thing that we can be together, even though we're scattered all over the world. And I want to share that Jim is not able to be with us today because he's on an airplane heading for Washington, D.C. for the march. And so is, oh gosh, I'm going blank. Bonafshe is also on an airplane at this point going to Washington. So they are representing our Ubiquity University and Chartres community and women and humanity on behalf of all of us who would love to be there and are not physically able to be there. So we'll hold them in our hearts during our call today and know that they are with us in spirit, and I've told them that we are with them in spirit. And Carolyn is going to be our featured speaker today, and I would like to share a few introductory words And the last call that we had, I spoke for a few minutes about the number 2. And I would like to just say a few words today, coming back to 2, which is the duality, opposition, the oneness, separating into two-ness, and how that leads to the number 3. And there are 2 quotes that I would like to share with you. This first one is so relevant for this moment in world history and specifically in American history, but it really is going to affect the whole world. The opposite is beneficial. From things that differ comes the fairest attunement. All things are born through strife. And that was Heraclitus, who said that somewhere around 500 BC. And the other quote that I'd like to read to you is by Carl Menninger, American psychiatrist, who died in 1990. He was born in 1893, almost made it to be 100. And he said, the 2 we experience, in the 2, we experience the very essence of number more intensely than in other numbers. That essence being to bind many together into one, to equate plurality and unity. Our mind divides the world into heaven and earth, day and night, light and darkness, right and left, man and woman, I and you. And the more strongly we sense the separation between these poles, whatever they may be, the more powerfully do we also sense their unity. So this gives a picture of the quality of number and how it can bear wisdom for us in social times that seem unfathomable. And so out of that picture of the two-ness, I would just like to share a little bit about the number 3 as a grounding for us in this moment of history. And Carl Jung stated that, but every tension of opposites culminates in a release, out of which comes the third. And in the third, the tension is resolved and the lost unity is restored. Aristotle spoke, the whole is that which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the beginning is the 1, and the middle is the 2, and the end culminating in the 3. And I mentioned that that I have this image of the Vesica Pisces on my computer up right now, because it is this image that portrays, so you have a circle. I'm not going to try and show you the image right now on my computer, but when we come together in Chartres, I'll show you this in great detail. But we have one circle, and that demonstrates the unity, the number 1, the wholeness of everything. And the circle has a diameter, or a radius rather, and if you take that radius and you put the center point of your compass on any point on the outside, on the perimeter of the circle, and keep that same radius length, and you draw a second radius, you have what is called a Vesica Pisces. You have 2 now. The 1 has become 2. And they are equal in dimensions, in volume, etc. And the two overlap, and in the middle is this precious form that is the third. It is the child. Many ancient peoples talked of the two as mother, father and mother, mother and father, and that the center of these overlapping circles is the child. And if you draw lines from the places where the circles touch, you have a vertical line and you have a crossing over, and it creates, and then from the center of each circle to the places where the circles cross each other, what forms is a perfect equilateral triangle. The three comes out of the two. It's birthed out of the two. And this image of this perfection of how numbers reveal the wisdom of creation and existence and transformation, the dichotomy of opposites and the resolution in the triangle is quite something. And if we just think for a moment, the numerous times that the number three is invoked when we talk about, well, you can say the Holy Trinity, we can say you're given 3 wishes, we can say that there are the 3, oh gosh, I'm forgetting some of them, but the 3s exist everywhere. We have the three kings who came to visit Jesus. We have the 3 who Parsifal was one of the 3 key knights in the Grail story. We can go on like this with the number 3. And there's a reason why there are always 3, because it brings us out of oneness through the two-ness back into harmony and wholeness. And I feel like right now we're at a place of great tension in our country and in the world. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of activation of strong response to what is perceived as a very problematic situation. And that out of this division, and we are being defined worldwide as a country divided. And we have to find the third point. We have to find the triangle. We have to find the resolution. And I believe with all my being that the reason we're in this situation is because of a lack, that the amount of, let's say, scientific and social or economic development is out of balance with the amount of spiritual development, that there isn't an equation there. And that what is going to bring us to solution that is what I believe all of us are interested in, which is peaceful, harmonious, caring for the earth, caring for all the people who have needs, that it's what's required is another octave of spiritual consciousness in the world. And I think that's what Carolyn is going to be talking about when she shares with us about the magic of numbers and how they actually live within our organism as well as in the external world. So with that, Carolyn, I would like to invite you to share with us your wisdom.
Well, it's wonderful to be here. I too, by the way, am participating in the march. There's a huge march organized here in Chicago, and I keep running into everybody from waitresses in our local restaurants to my niece and all her friends to a whole group of our friends, and I think Andrew and I are going down Saturday, so believe me, Chartres is well represented.
Yes.
Anyway, this isn't about that, but hello, everybody. I was so excited to find out this was visual because I have illustrations, and you'll be pleased to know not many because art is not my gift, but it is going to help with my presentation, not just today, but when we get to France, because it's going to help to convert this. I have exercises that we're going to be doing during the week, and I hope you'll find them fascinating. I have a background, as probably some of you, maybe all of you know, as a medical intuitive, and that's going to play into this presentation because it was as a medical intuitive that I learned what I'm about to share with you about the mathematics of our relationship between thought, form, illness, and the speed at which we become ill. The speed that is inherently built into emotion, into thought, and into absolutely everything, the calculations that we participate in. And in this way, it's how we calculate our relationship to the speed at which we experience our relationship to time. And that converts to the speed at which we calculate our healing. So I have two illustrations. The first is one that has become my icon. Now, you have to tell me if you can see this, so that's up to you. Karen, help me out. Can you see this?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, this is the illustration that I use all the time. Simple but accurate. You're here in the center. Now, this, without this, just the energy coming in and you in the parentheses, is what I think of as the ideal you in a full present time with energy coming in through the top of your head. And in a more enlightened state, we would call it grace. When I started to do readings, what I realized I was observing was a person hemorrhaging, losing energy and hemorrhaging. It took me a long time. It took me years and years to be able to develop the sensitivity to recognize that every one of these, sorry, help me out. Is this it? Every one of these, what I call anchors, is really connected to our, and I'll describe how we develop anchors, what they are, etc., but I just want to give you an overview. Every one of the anchors we have in life is actually very expensive. And if I put it into the language of math, it is, it draws, let's look at it this way. We're going to work with this calculation, and we're going to work with it when we get to Chartres. You're going to be given $100 of energy per day to run your body and to run your life. And $100 a day, and you're going to calculate how you spend this. And from this $100, you have to calculate how much you spend to run your body, your mind, your ideas, love, judgments, casual thoughts, serious thoughts, emotional issues, all your emotions. They're very expensive, by the way. Your emotional issues are going to drain your bank account. Your relationships, your myths, your dreams. We're going to illustrate all of this. Obviously, I cannot do that today, but I am going to give you just this vast overview of how expensive the human life is, energetically speaking. Now, I want you to hold that thought and come over here. In all mysticism, what is taught, no matter what tradition you look at, the object of mysticism, the object is to teach the student to be in present time, to be present, to have all of your soul, all of your energy, all of yourself here now. I have another illustration. Another language to put that in is to be fully in Kairos time, which is present time. Kairos time. Put your arm up. Kairos time. We physically live in the Chronos world. That's day to day to day to day. Okay? The soul in Kairos, the body in Chronos. Now, what happens in this illustration is that I calculate where you are in relationship to this chart. That's what you're going to be doing. And the distance between how you are, let me put it this way. The more every anchor you have creates psychic weight, W-E-I-G-H-T. And the more weight you have, the longer you have to W-A-I-T for anything. Synchronicity, healing, coincidence, the more gravity, gravitas, you build into your cell tissue, into the operating system of the mystical laws of the universe. Everything becomes densified. Absolutely everything. So to put it in the language of the obvious, you fall into the matter world with more density. Your capacity to respond to light, Kairos energy, boom, Kairos, light-filled information, becomes something you want to, watch me, densify. You want to build time into it. You want to reshape the calculation. How do you do this? I'll give you an example. And we're going to convert this into the chakras. We're going to convert this into the speed at which you do everything, which also converts into the speed at which you determine your healing, the speed at which you determine how ill you become and at what rate. You have this kind of influence. Let me give you an example. You walk in to a room and you do a 7th chakra question. What's going on here? 7th chakra question. And you immediately get a hit. And that hit may be, my son's on drugs. You get the emotional hit. It goes immediately to the 6th chakra where that light is converted within a microsecond into language. That's what the 6th chakra does. It converts it into vocabulary, into language. Now, what is also happening is that here's Kairos, the 7th chakra. Now it's moving down into the process of time and space. It is densifying. It is going into the field of gravity. So now it's coming down. As it gets language, you pause. And you get the hit. He's on drugs. Now you have to make a decision. As it goes further, it hits the 5th chakra, which is choice. Now you're going to change the calculation. Do you actually want this to hit the heart zone? Because the heart zone is direct center. Now that's going to determine whether that hit of light goes immediately into the physical world, in which case you're going to make a decision, which is, hey, you, get over here. I'm going to drag you into treatment right now. So that thought goes into form instantly. Kairos. You push the air, you push the rod right back up again. thought goes into form instantly, and you instantly act on what you know it's true at Kairos speed. Or you go to the heart and you say, I don't want to know this that fast. And now you begin to densify it. And you start pushing it into the third, second, and first chakras, where you start the calculations to densify it when it goes under the heart. At that point, the calculations take on, et voila, anchors. Here, you have to begin to hemorrhage as you anchor into what Buddha would call illusion. You have to take things that are not true and start making up illusions in order to create dense matter. You have to begin to say, he must be having a rough time in school. That's what it is. And you start twisting what you know in your gut, because now you're in your gut, and you have, which is third chakra, and you have to start twisting that, modifying what you know intuitively is true. You are now participating in an act of self-betrayal. You are betraying what you are wired to receive accurately. You're pardon me, you are completely betraying yourself. Now you have to push it even further into second chakra. Second chakra is that intense survival mode between you and the other. It is the chakra of what Karen just described as the number 2. It is you and the other. You have to figure out how to approach this other to maintain the myth that the other person is in fact not on drugs. So you have to reshape the whole archetypal mythology so that you can do a dance around this person and maintain the illusion. You have to figure out a way to reroute your own gut instincts so you can survive being within their energy field, numbing your own intuitive hit that says, I know for a fact you are on heroin, or you're doing crack or meth or whatever it is. Now that takes a little doing. So at this point, your own system, drawing time, begins to hemorrhage even more, because now you are really pulling from your cell tissue. Because at this point, self-betrayal is expensive. It is very, very expensive, especially to your cell tissue, because now you're pulling from gut. You're pulling from the area where you can do damage to everything from the stomach area, the colon area. Lower back is financial betrayal, betrayal in terms of survival issues with the physical world, not trusting people. They're all located in this place. Ovarian issues, endometriosis can be part of this area, but they're very site specific. The pancreas is majorly involved for issues of responsibility and the speed at which this breaks down. And these are the calculations we're going to get into. The speed and the density of it. The pancreas is involved when issues of responsibility become extreme. When somebody feels that they are responsible for everything, or when they don't want responsibility for anything, then what happens is drawing time. The hemorrhaging will take on 2, 3, 4, 6 strands. And then what we have is a calculation in which the pancreas can no longer keep the speed. Here we go. The speed of it begins to go into overdrive. And once that happens, it burns out or goes into overburn, because the issues, the psychic issues, are out of range for what the pancreas is designed in physical matter to handle. So, the next, of course, when finally a person's working with an issue that they are rerouting, and it finally gets into the first chakra, and it completely hits the earth this way. By that time, what you've done, and you've decided, now I have figured out a way to reroute my intuitive hit where I know my son's on drugs, but I've recalculated that instantaneous intuitive hit, and I have done it in such a way that I don't have to sense that truth for another 3 years. I have put 3 years worth of time because I've created a myth, and included in that myth, I've gotten rid of the people who will challenge me. Anybody who says, you've got to talk to your son, I banned them from my life. I've said, don't talk to me anymore. In fact, I don't want to see you anymore. So that adds 6 months of silence here. I'm not seeing those family members. So with that, I've got another 7 months. I am now doing the calculations. And if I've calculated correctly, that should give me 3 years before I get to the point where he passes out and I look at everybody and say, I knew it all the time. But by that time, I will be 3 years down the line, and I'll be able to have somehow dealt with it in my unconscious, and I will be able to say, I knew it all the time. Am I helping? Is this making sense?
Yes.
Because that's the way it is. That's exactly the way it is. This is the mathematics of creation, how they apply to what we do every microsecond of our life. You think we're not mathematical? My God, we are all mathematical wizards. Every single one of us is a mathematical wizard. And the number of mathematical equations we do within one thought form, one thought, is over the edge. It's unbelievable. Every time I'm with somebody, you ask them to make a decision, what they're actually doing, someone who says, oh, I don't know what to do. This is the way I think, but how I feel, what I think, how I feel, is they can't get the calculation straight. They simply cannot get a calculation straight. What they can't do is figure out the speed at which they want their life to change. So people who live in two different worlds, their thinking world and their feeling world, are trying to stop the speed of change in their life. And the way they do it is they divide themselves into two people, their thinking person and their feeling person. And they give their thinking person the day shift. So the thinking person goes from 4 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. And the shift starts when the thinking person begins to get drowsy about 2 in the afternoon. And the thinking person goes, ooh, I can't keep my eyes open. And then the thinking person starts going like this, and the emotional person takes over. And the emotional person starts saying, let's get out of here. I can't stand this atmosphere. Let's go someplace else and dim the lights, have a drink, starts talking. And then the thinking person says, I know what I said, but let me tell you how I feel. Feeling calculations are very different than thinking calculations. And the object of this person is to not let them touch. Can't let them touch. You can't let the thoughts touch the emotions. This becomes the task of the 5th chakra. This person will always, always, without exception, be an addict. They will always, always be an addict. Now, it just depends on what type of addiction. And this manages the speed of what can and will change in the life. Because every single time the thought, the disturbance, the disruption begins to touch the emotional, what the hell is wrong with me? And begins to come close to that, that person will grab something, scream, shove something in their mouth, do the repeated habit, because this is daddy bear, this is mommy bear, and this is baby bear. And the way to keep change, the way to keep the Chronos world intact so that it doesn't, to keep the speed of change just bouncing in the 1st and 2nd chakras so it doesn't whoosh, go like this, is to feed baby bear on a regular basis. Food, sugar, stuff, drugs, anything. The reason we have such a highly addicted culture is because this is the time of the era of the psyche and the soul. This is the Kairos era. We're getting hit all the time with intuitive things. So we are Kairosing constantly with the speed of change, like, but we don't know how to yet bring that into harmony with our Chronos life. We don't know how to make this calculation where our capacity to get intuitive hits can coordinate with the speed of Chronos decisions. We don't know how to do that yet. So I see that in healing all the time. And one of the things I've recognized in healing, especially since I've gotten seriously involved in healing and in asking questions like, why are people able to, I just got a letter yesterday from a person who, experienced, who was working with them, a healing of Hashimoto's. I mean, that's unheard of. And a healing of this and a healing of that. And I took a very different approach with this person. And it wasn't a matter of, hey, you know what? Here's some more candles, or make this pilgrimage, or drink this holy water, or any of that. Not that I don't have reverence for these matters, by the way. But one time I had a dream, and I have great reverence for my dreams. And it was a dialogue. And this came after many years of truly praying and thinking, observing, and being with people whose suffering was something Anyway, the conversation was brief but deep and profound. And that healing is often, it's available for everybody. It's not a reward, but it's denied people in fact, out of compassion, because so many people cannot sustain an experience that happens at Kairos speed while they're still so connected to the Chronos world. That a Kairos speed experience requires such strength of soul, because in the Chronos world, when you have a Chronos mentality, you are someone who lives in a world where you are constantly looking for validation for what you've experienced. You're constantly saying, see what I did? See what happened to me? Is this okay? Do you think I can do it? And as you ascend, the spiritual journey is about releasing the need for outer validation and finally choosing your allegiance. Is it your inner life or your outer? And your inner life has got to become, at some point, the dominant place of your reality, where you recognize, once I take residence fully in the world behind my eye, then I, like the Buddha, have got to acknowledge this outside world is a place of illusion, and I cannot let it have authority over me. I cannot. I have to believe that what the spirit is capable of, the walking on the water, the healing of anything, is that which can happen when I understand the laws, when I understand the power of the non-physical world. No matter what anyone else believes, I cannot let the belief of 1 million people stand stronger than the mustard seed I now hold in me. A mountain cannot bring down my mustard seed once I find that mustard seed in me. A healing instantaneously is a mustard seed experience. And a person has got to be able to sustain that happened to them. And when everybody else says, but how? I don't get it. I don't get it. How did that happen? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. A lot of people can't sustain that. Something happens out of time, out of the mathematical calculations that say this has to take 6 weeks, because that's what this pill says. That's what this medicine says. That's what has always happened. It has to take 6 weeks. How did this take 6 seconds? You have defied the laws of mathematics. The power of one's soul to have an experience that defies the laws of math has to be so enormous, because that's called a miracle. But a miracle is when God does break the laws of math just for you. And that's the intimacy that exists in an impersonal universe. Otherwise, it is held together completely by laws and order and mathematics. And that's how come we have medicine. And even illness is subject to the laws of mathematics, which is why at some point we will be able to calculate the weight of a bad attitude and the speed at which it breaks down your body. I can only but I know that people are programmed. They are programmed to be able to sense that they are breaking down. I know it because I know what I'm talking about, and I'm the best at this. And I know it. And in Chartres, we're going to do these calculations. You're going to sense and actually sense how fast are you breaking down. You're going to do mystical math. You're going to figure out, where am I other than here, and how much is it costing me? And what will it take to bring yourself back? Because I have to tell you that attitudes and bad attitudes are very expensive. Holding on to illusions are very expensive. I think I'm getting too rambunctious, Karen. But I find this subject so fascinating. When I was first, beginning to recognize that this was the way the system worked. This was simply the mathematics, the finer mathematics of the soul. The mathematics of the soul. That everything is simply calculations. That everything is about the speed of light incarnating through us. And that the factor was one of doubt and belief and trust. And as soon as doubt enters, then doubt is the densifier. Because as soon as you have doubt and fear, you begin to melt into the world of illusion. You actually begin to melt into it and blend into illusions. You make choices that melt yourself into the calculations of illusions. And then your part of your soul begins to blend into the consequences of the illusions you've melted yourself into. And that's how you end up becoming part of an epidemic, or part of a huge experience like a tsunami or a global crisis, because you've melted yourself into it. You don't understand that the power of developing an individual, you have to develop the power of the individual soul. It's very, very costly. It's expensive to withdraw and become a strong soul that is able to sustain itself in a world full of illusions and fears. Should we open for questions?
Yes, if you'd like. Yes, what you've said is fantastic, Carolyn. I think we all want to clap. and yeah, so if I want to thank you before we actually open for questions and say that, what you've brought is very directly relevant to everybody and also very pertinent to our times right now. And it's a brilliant perspective to hold. And I just want to thank you.
Oh,
Gila.
I want to just hug you and say hi.
Yeah.
We have Zena. We have Zena asking a question.
Okay.
Hi, can you see me?
Yes.
Hello.
You're sideways.
Oh, is that
There you go.
better?
There we go.
Hi, thank you so much for a beautiful and very inspiring lecture. You're such a force of nature, Carolyn. It was really wonderful listening to you.
Thank you.
So I don't know if I missed this, but at the beginning you were talking about the path of the jolt coming down and then choosing to make a decision and going lower and lower. Sorry, my dog is, but you didn't, I don't know if I missed this, but what do you do not to let it go further and further? Or is this going to be the subject of your work in France,
Yes.
which unfortunately I can't attend? Is that just a very long discussion, or is that something we could kind of get into?
Well, I'll try, and I will try and give an answer rather than leave you hanging. But yes, I will go into it much further in France because it has I believe the whole essence of the spiritual path is the journey of becoming aware of the power of the choices we make. And how to sustain the choices we make. That in a nutshell, every choice is a creative enterprise. There's no such thing as a small choice or a powerless choice. It doesn't exist. And every single choice has an impact in the creation of the whole. The mystical laws, what is in one is in the whole. What we do to one, we do to everybody. And every one of us has a legion of creative support in the non-physical world, and our intuitive system knows that. And I know that now. As a medical intuitive, we are wired to receive guidance. We receive it through our nervous system. We know when we are betraying our eating habits. That's guidance. That's our bodies. That's our organic divinity talking to us, saying, why are you eating this? You can't eat this. That's organic. That's the language of organic divinity. There isn't anybody, not one person, who can say honestly that they don't receive guidance, because it will speak to them through headaches, through migraines, through upset stomachs. All of that is guidance. Through backaches. This is organic divinity. And it's all designed to have a person respond at Kairos speed to something that doesn't incarnate into a Chronos disaster. Once it incarnates into Chronos, it hits your biology, it hits the biology of others, it hits the world of time, space, speed, and experience. But along the way, until it gets right there, as it hovers at that fourth chakra, you got a lot of time to call it back. Like I've seen with illness, and how many times with my dear, dear partner Norm for 34 years now, and over 10,000 readings. 12,000 now. There are times when I pick up illness in the higher chakras, which means they're not physical yet. You're manifesting the symptoms, just like how often you get sick before it's actually physical. You go to the doctor and the doctor says, I don't know what's wrong. You know something's wrong. You feel it. You're lethargic. 80% of illnesses will manifest 80% of the same symptoms until they choose their route at the last 20%. Then maybe they'll become lupus. Maybe they'll become Crohn's. Maybe they'll become leukemia. But until that point, the breakdown of the body in the journey of breaking down is identical. The fatigue, the weakness, the lethargy, the need to sleep more. It's all identical. That beginning stage of breaking into the body falling apart, that loss of energy. And it's right there that I'm most useful as a medical intuitive. Right there. Because right there in that hovering stage, that's your power zone, where you still have the power to pull back and make a choice, make other choices, turn it on and own. I do hear you. I do hear you. I do hear you. I'm not gonna make that choice. You're right. I can't. I'll make the more courageous one. But if you give in and you act like you don't hear the guidance, you're diabetic, and you say, I don't hear that guidance about no sugar. You're overweight, and you think, I don't hear that guidance about don't eat so much and get up and exercise. I'll do it tomorrow. And your guidance says, you're lying. You're doing it again and lying. And you think, and you let yourself get away with yet another lie. Then it goes down like this. But you can't deny you heard it. You can't deny heaven was right there telling you, stop it. And all you're doing is densifying yourself. You're becoming more and more locked up into time. And you know what that means? Now let's go on the other side of my work. It means you can't heal at the speed of light. You've put too much time in yourself. You've densified yourself too much. You've become thick as concrete. In order to heal at the speed of light, oh God, what have I done? You have to calculate how much time you have in you. Energy medicine means you have to be more energy than matter. Otherwise, you're just putting perfume on yourself instead of actually the essence of the energy of the oil. It's all math. It's going to be a big presentation.
Yeah.
See, Karen?
Yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think Apila may have had a question. I think she wanted to say
Where's
something.
Apila? I haven't been able to hug her. Where is she?
Put on your gallery view and you'll see her.
Wait a minute.
It's up at the top right.
All righty. Oh, there you are, Jelly Bean.
So, Carolyn, I have a question for you. You see over my shoulder
I do.
the window of Mary Magdalene, and this was at University of Creation Spirituality with me. And my question to you is, have you thought about the example of Mary Magdalene with the tones, the colors, the vibrations of the chakras? And if not, would you please?
I don't know how how to translate that into the chakras. I do a workshop in the south of France with about Mary Magdalene in the autumn. This will be my third one.
Yeah, but the thing to go on is that when Christ heals her of the seven.
Oh, the seven
Demons.
Demons, yeah.
Yes.
So, since you had Saint Teresa and her castle, I'm wondering if you can think of Magdalene and her. I mean, imagine the woman that she was. Imagine the presence of being near her, someone who had all seven of these tones and lights healed.
Yeah, I think she's the goddess of our time now.
Yeah.
I think she's the goddess of our time. It's very interesting. I made my pilgrimage to Medjugorje finally.
Oh.
Yeah, I finally got there. And I went because, for a number of reasons, not the least of which is the Catholic in me has been very mindful that, as having all my life been quite devoted to Mary, and has been, have all read as much as I could about the visions of Lourdes and Fatima and Guadalupe and Medjugorje. But in Medjugorje, you know, Mary has always had a pattern. She's appeared to children. She's left messages. She's left healing. She's left something in her wake. She's left, you know, a place to heal. She's left something. She doesn't leave. She does not come and go without a signature. But this time she said she's never coming back to the earth. This is her last. But now the Magdalene has surfaced. And I just look at this. I'm not drawing a conclusion, but I am an observer of the mystical, and certainly of the mystical Marys. And as Mother Mary now comes the wife of Jesus, as the role of Jesus is becoming more cosmic, his partner, wife, is surfacing. And I caution people with projecting things on her before she herself reveals them. So I'm careful not to do that, Apila. Mm-hmm. It's the theologian in me. I just allow heaven to, because that's just the way I am. But I have a deep reverence for her. But I'm also aware of all the stories of the Knights Templar and all of this, the way they have mythologized the Magdalene. So and yet now these pieces are emerging that I credit her with. Mm-hmm. Even the one that Karen has at Harvard that says, she's my wife.
Yes.
Okay. Now these pieces are the ones that I will tie to her. Mm-hmm. These are the ones, because they're physical. Mm-hmm. Because they have substance to them. These are the ones that I sit back and say, well, the Madonna of Medjugorje says, I'm not coming back. She is coming. Mm-hmm. So I'm watching this as I see the church fulfilling a prophecy of Fatima, which says it will break as two popes reside. And now two popes reside. And Francis says it is full of demons. And now we have a demon in the White House. And I'm watching the demons take over. And I've watched for the last 60 years as people have dispelled the language necessary to see good and evil. They've thrown out the word conscience. They've thrown out the word dark, evil. And they don't. I navigate differently with different language. I see the world as a Catholic theologian, as someone who navigates with different soul vocabulary. It is obvious to me, as I agree with Francis, there's possession going on. And it's dark. It's very dark. And I know that as I look...
Can I say something, Carolyn? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It happened that several years ago, I was at the University of Oxford in their department of papyrology.
Yeah.
And the reason I was there is I was there to look at this fragment of a parchment from the Gospel of Mary. And they think that the piece that I had in my hands is they're connecting it with Mary Magdalene. They're not 100% sure, but they're sort of sure. And the thing was, when I was the fragment was no bigger than like this, yeah. And it's in a plate of glass. And as I held it, the feeling was so beautiful. That was one thing. And then just beholding it, the feeling that I had. Then the second thing was, I noticed that as I looked at it, the parchment, as in its antiquity, had little like sparkles of gold in it as it moved. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, this is a new era a new spiritual era. I'm very grateful that we have this mystery school, that we have a chance to gather and for selfish reasons, just that I need to pray there. I've turned into a bit of a recluse mystic, you know. I feel the need for prayer so strong. I mean, for the world, and I just do. Yeah, I do. Serious prayer again. You know, Lord, you have called me. For what purpose I stand here? For what purpose? Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn. I think there's one other person who has their hand up. Is that true, Dan?
No hands up at the moment.
Okay. Oh, it says here, Lorraine asked, just to quote a wonderful teacher, that was so good, we could hardly stay in our bodies. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wow. You know, I think we can all hardly wait to get there and be together and have the experience we're going to have. I want to thank you again, Carolyn.
But may I say one last thing?
Yes.
I want to thank you, Karen, for holding everything together, for organizing it, for all the work you do. I want to acknowledge that. You really are magnificent. And I just want to acknowledge you, because you're just like the oak tree that holds the Chartres family together. And everybody counts on you, and you just never disappoint. You are just always there. So really, thank you.
You're welcome. It's with great love and gratitude that I'm able to serve.
Yeah, well, you do magnificently, flawlessly.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to invite Jane to have a chance to say a few words before we close. If you have something you'd like to share to whet our appetite for next month, when you'll be the featured speaker on our call.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and connect with everyone. It's when I'm listening to Karen and Caroline, I'm just sitting here and every sentence is awakening a deep memory in me. I'm just sitting back and realizing the importance of having a full life, a whole life, because my life is very mathematically and geometrically based. And when I hear Caroline speak, I realize it's about proportion and making our lives coherent on many levels, not just mastering one level, but it's like we're here to accomplish many, many things in this one lifetime. And like you were saying, I think in this lifetime, it's an extraordinary time in the Earth's evolution, and we've all come together to learn from one another and to realize our place in this chessboard. So what I would like to talk about next month is Karen talked about the one becoming the two. So I would like to extend that conversation and go from how the 3 becomes the 4 becomes the 5. It's like a geometric unfolding or journey into the mythology of who we are. And so numbers are a powerful tool. It's a mathematics of timelessness, and mathematics will never change. And so in this world of chaos and changeability, I find security in the language of numbers and geometry and form, because that gives me a sense of peace. That's what connects me into my heart or into an internal state. as the world around us is changing all the time. So yeah, so I mean, for me, I would spend the next month just practicing and writing my script, because it becomes an article. So I wanted to thank you, Karen, for, you know, choosing your talk, the one becoming the two, because I realized the theological extension of 3, 4, 5, which is Pythagoras' triangle, is very, very rich in symbolism. So even in the last month, how the 3 becomes the 4 becomes the 5, I've written volumes. So I feel that being, like Caroline Myss just said, being associated to a conscious group of light workers like yourself, it helps me see where I belong, and that I'm part of a bigger thing. So I want to thank you all for including me and holding space for me, so that I can develop and find my power within me. And yeah, so I look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jane. We look forward to what you have to say as well. Some of you probably don't know, but Jane has actually come up with some calculations and theories about mathematics that are quite original and are on, you know, a cutting edge of the world of discovery and are being recognized around the world by mathematicians. So we have a lot to learn from him, and it's very exciting. So thank you, Jane. And we're getting close now to our closing, and I'm going to ask Apila to do a closing prayer for us. But before you do, I'm wondering if, because in honor of what's taking place, you know, we're all here right now on the cusp of a monumental event in world history, a turning point. I mean, everything's been moving gradually in a certain direction anyway, but there's a delineation, a marker that's taking place tomorrow with the inauguration. So I thought maybe Ruth might sing a little something just that brings peace and hope in our hearts. Even just invoking the presence of Mary always does that. And then, Apila, you could give us our closing prayer for today. And before all that happens, I want to say I hope to see you all on February 16th, which is our next Chartres call, February 16th. Jane will be our featured speaker, and we're hoping for Andrew for March 16th. And the time of the call may change again next month, so pay attention. There was a bit of a problem where the time that was set for this one is exactly the same time as the administrative committee of the university. So that puts him in needing to be in 2 places at the same time. And today he's on an airplane, so he's in neither place. But so be alert. The announcement that comes out, we're probably changing the time again, but we don't know yet what time that will be. But it will be Thursday, February 16th, somewhere around this time, or back to our old time of 1 o'clock Pacific time. I'm not sure yet. So, Ruth, if you could bless us with a song, and then Apila with our closing prayer.
Okay.
For the meeting of the light, the sound, to the love we step forward to renew. Mama, Noah, all my relations.
Thank you, Apila, and thank you, Bruce, and thank you, Carolyn, again, and everyone for joining us on this call. And we wish you strength and courage as we go forward day to day now in this changing world, and look forward to being together again on February 16th. And we send much love and blessings to everyone.
Mhm.
Yes.
Aloha.
Yeah, aloha.